We've got NBA games. Reportedly, the Knicks will face the Celtics on banner night 18 for Boston. Plus, the Wolves are going to face the Lakers. Does that mean Anthony Edwards is the new face of the league? We'll talk about the Christmas schedule, and we'll preview the 2028 Team USA. All that and more on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA, your daily source for all things NBA from the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us Monday through Friday with all of our great shows and different hosts. We do appreciate you guys being along for the ride. Make sure to check out all of our great shows throughout the week. You can catch Jake Masson and John Corrales tomorrow on Wednesday, as well as Pat the Designer and Nick Angstadt on Thursdays, and Adam Mares and Wes Goldberg on Fridays. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network and co-host of Locked On Nuggets. I'm joined by David Ramil. He's co-host of Locked On Heat. On today's show, we'll preview the 2028 Team USA, make some predictions for who we think will be on Team USA as they go for gold again in Los Angeles. We'll talk about the Christmas Day slate and what's on the schedule for that, because the games have started to be released. Because we will start, David, with this. The opening night schedule has been leaked. Shams Charania of The Athletic reported on Monday that the Boston Celtics, as they are obviously going to host the first game of the season as they raise banner 18 to the rafters, will take on the New York Knicks. Obviously, the Knicks making a big move in the offseason, adding Mikal Bridges. That will be the first game on the slate. It was either going to be them or the Sixers, I thought. Those were the two options for it to be. And I guess there's some sort of rule in the universe that the Sixers have to play the Bucks on opening night, because this is going to be the third season in a row where that's going to happen. So instead, the Knicks will take on the Celtics in the Garden. What were your thoughts? Boston's Garden, TD Garden, not the other Garden, the big Garden. What were your thoughts on when you heard that it was Knicks Celtics on opening night?
Well, I don't know if that was, honestly, I don't know if there was any kind of locally sourced reporting or anything like that, or maybe it was just might have been secondary guessing on the internet. Some people were at least locally suggesting that Miami might be there, kind of as a stick it in your face to the Heat, a longtime rival of the Boston Celtics, but it did not work out that way. I think it's a great matchup. I think it's interesting. You've got the Celtics team, who are the defending champions, and then you've got the New York Knicks, who many see as a potential title contender, a deep team, etc. They make some changes. It's a lot of fun. The Knicks are a big marquee name. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. I don't see how they could have made it any better. I think it's a great matchup. You've got two Eastern Conference teams that are going to be challenging for each other for the Eastern Conference supremacy, and I think it's a fun matchup with a lot of big names, a lot of recognizable names. It's everything you would want in a marquee matchup.
On the basketball side of it, I think it's great because the Knicks very clearly kind of designed their team to counter Boston, right? They add Mikal Bridges, which is like they have so much redundancy now with OG Anunoby and Josh Hart that they're going to be able to test out pretty much immediately that switching defense to try and go against what Boston brings to the table from the perimeter. And the Knicks kind of struggled with the Celtics last season because, well, everyone did, as the Celtics beat almost every team by double digits. But this should be a really great matchup on only opening night. You got Jalen Brunson, you got Jason Tatum, fresh off of being mad about only getting a gold medal and not playing. You got Jaylen Brown mad about being excluded from Team USA. You got a lot of stuff for the Celtics to be motivated by. There won't be any Kristaps Porzingis, but it should be a fun one.
Is Julius Randle going to be available?
Ooh, I think he's expected to be, but that's an interesting question. Especially because he might be available, but will he be a Knick? I think is an equally interesting question from that perspective as well. In the late game, Charania reported that the Los Angeles Lakers, because they have LeBron James and they're the Lakers, are going to play on opening night, but they'll host this time instead of going to, as they did last season, going to Denver. They'll host this time versus the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I gotta tell you, David, I was pretty surprised. When I was kind of predicting who opening night would be, I thought the Lakers would be on it because it's the Lakers, but I thought it was actually going to be Dallas. I thought that Luka Doncic, the Western Conference, reigning Western Conference champion, that they would get the nod especially after adding Klay Thompson. I thought for sure this was going to be either Lakers at Mavericks or Mavericks at Lakers in the late game. And if not, I was like, maybe it's OKC, because OKC is not just in pundit conversations, but in the betting market expected to be the number 1 seed with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's the runner-up to MVP. But no, it's not OKC, and it's not Dallas, and it's not Denver. It's Minnesota, which I thought was a really interesting choice. The Wolves obviously had an awesome season last year, but I was a little bit surprised that they chose Wolves versus the Lakers until I started to think about the superstar ramification side of this.
Yeah. I know where you're going with that. As far as the other options, like OKC, we've talked about it before. We both agree that they're going to be one of the best teams, if not the best team in the West. But it just does not feel like they have that name, the singular draw there. As good as Shai is, I still think he's under the radar. And I don't know if it's by virtue of his game or the fact that he's Canadian or whatever, but he just does not seem to hold the general casual NBA fandom to the same degree as some of the other names in the league. And so I don't think, as good as they were last year and as good as they're probably going to be this upcoming season, I just don't think they're there just yet. I think the Mavericks were an interesting option because Luka, while he is that star level name, you couldn't have him going to Los Angeles because that seems somewhat, I would think, disrespectful of a team that just represented the Western Conference in the finals. At the same time, I think you want LA to host that game because the Lakers might put up a banner for LeBron's championship. He'll wear his gold medal. You can put together a really nice video montage of LeBron's offseason alongside AD. And so I think that works a lot better. So you have to have the Lakers hosting, but to have Luka and the Western Conference champion Dallas Mavericks travel there to kind of watch all that unfurl before them kind of feels like it's doing them dirty a little bit. So the idea about Minnesota, though, and it's a great question that you were asking, is Anthony Edwards just the superstar now that has that kind of draw around the league? And I don't know that he's quite there, but I think he's pretty damn close. Do you think, and I know you asked this earlier, is he the face of the league moving forward? It's a really interesting question. What do you think?
I think the league wants him to be. I'm not sure he is yet. I think he had that moment when he was absolutely torching the Suns and the Nuggets when they went 6-0 to start the playoffs, that I think that it was like, hey, Anthony Edwards has arrived and he's like the new face of the league. And look how much he looks, like he looks like Jordan and he reminds everybody of Jordan and all those kind of really kind of salacious rumors. But like that kind of conversation about him was there, and this idea of the new face of the league. And there is a real question about whether or not the face of the league has to be an American, given that it's an American league. I don't think you can make the case that it's Nikola Jokic, because Jokic is always going to completely reject the spotlight and do so in an honestly pretty disrespectful way. And so Jokic can't be that. He's not that personality, and he's a big man that makes hook shots and great passes. That's never going to be the face of the NBA. Luka, I think, is close. If there's any European player that could be, or international player, I should say, it's Luka Doncic. Giannis was the first one to win a title of this international group of players, but he's not considered the face of the league. And I don't think it's Embiid either. And so it really does kind of become like, is Ant the heir apparent? And it seems to me that the league is trying to, I don't know if they're trying to make fetch happen, but they are trying to kind of configure this in such a way that Anthony Edwards is being presented as a potential face of the league.
I mean, it's an interesting question. I don't think he's done enough yet. I think it's interesting also because, just last season over at Locked On Heat, we kind of reviewed Dwayne Wade and the 2006 NBA championship, and just the way that Mike Breen and the commentators were talking about Dwayne and his ascendancy. Or at this point, obviously, we know now with hindsight that Dwayne wound up being one of the best NBA players in history. At the same time, like the fact that he was still a young player, to see his star on the rise and the way they talked about him, I think Edwards is getting somewhat of that treatment. But you also, at that point in time in 2006, you had LeBron James. So and you had Kobe Bryant. Your face of the league was already pretty clearly established. With Ant now, he's not the best player in the league. He's in your top 10. I don't think he's top 5 yet. But you've also got your older generation, and we just saw on Team USA with KD, LeBron James, and Steph Curry. Feels like they're kind of not necessarily being phased out, but they can't carry in the next generation, the next era. Who else is available? Jason Tatum? I know we kind of tend to joke, or maybe it's just NBA Twitter or social media in general, but the lack of aura about him, if you will, like he just seems a little too bland to be the next face of the league. Also, not interesting enough, and I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, my own opinion of him is that he would be fine. He just doesn't seem as electrifying enough. I don't think he can be the face of the league. Who else could it be? We talked about this before we started recording. Is Jalen Brunson somebody who could be that as a diminutive point guard that has had, one all-star level season and has had some playoff success? Is he good enough yet? I don't think he is. And I look going through the list of other candidates, it just doesn't seem to be an American name that warrants being considered at this point in time. I can't think of anybody else. Maybe it's somebody on the horizon. Maybe it's somebody that is, a year or two away. Just among the current crop of players right now, it might be Anthony Edwards or bust.
I think we'll feel differently in a year. I think is probably the answer to that question, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out this season. Up next, the Christmas Day schedule is also out. We'll talk about those games and what that means for how the league presents things, as well as what those matchups look like. We'll do that next here on Locked On NBA. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. We'll be right back on Locked On NBA. Back here on Locked On NBA. Thanks for joining us on a Tuesday. Matt Moore alongside David Ramil. David, so the Christmas Day slate is also out. That got reported last week by Shams. Kind of slipped under the radar with all the Team USA hoopla. So I'll ask you to give your reactions to this. We got the Spurs will face the Knicks. Victor Wembanyama makes a trip to MSG in the world's most famous arena. The Timberwolves, again on national TV, one of the primetime slots in the afternoon, will face the Dallas Mavericks. The 76ers take on the Celtics. The Lakers are at the Warriors in a fantastic battle of play-in teams. And the Nuggets take on the Suns in the nightcap. What was your reaction to the schedule?
Very, you know what? It's fine. I think it's absolutely fine. I think that there's a lot of hand-wringing, collective hand-wringing around NBA media and the peripheral NBA, family on social media. And I think it's got a little bit of everything. I've seen some comment that it's not highlighting that next generation enough, but I think we kind of also show, like in our discussion in the first segment, like what are the names that they want to promote in terms of that next generation? Is it just Oklahoma City? I'm not sure exactly what that next generation looks like or who that next big name that you want to start promoting on Christmas Day. But I think it's got a good mix of good teams, good storylines, great players, even older players like LeBron. I mean, like LeBron is still carrying the league. Like people are still, like we saw him playing in Paris with Team USA. He's still that guy. It's like, I don't know why we wouldn't want him out there, despite the fact that his team isn't successful. Should they just reward teams that achieved success the year before? I mean, is that the point that you're trying to make, that as play-in teams that maybe they shouldn't be on the Christmas Day schedule? Because, I mean, it's still Steph Curry, it's still LeBron James, and I think that they should be there until they're no longer in the NBA.
I just think it's funny that they did put them against each other and make it into this big marquee matchup when it's like, yeah,
I get it.
It's the 7 seed versus the 10 seed in the Western Conference.
Ooh.
And I think that there's a little bit of circular logic here where how is the next generation going to find itself a larger audience if they're not given these opportunities? Now, the counter to that is like the audience that they're chasing on Christmas doesn't want that. They want established products that they know, and they know LeBron and they know Steph and they love LeBron and they love Steph, and it's two big California markets. So let's have Lakers, Warriors, woo. And that makes a lot of sense. And Mavericks Wolves is a rematch of the Western Conference Finals that pits Ant versus Luka. I think that's totally that makes a lot of sense to me. I will say, like, I don't have a lot of excitement about watching Sixers Celtics
Why
round
not?
842. Now that's like a good matchup of good teams, right? Like both those teams
Right.
should be Paul George, Joel Embiid, Jason Tatum, the reigning champs. Good matchup. Like if we're gonna say that we should put the good teams on, that's the kind of matchup that we should have on there. I'm just not necessarily excited to watch it. I like that they've got Knicks at or Spurs and Knicks. Some people were like, "Ooh, that's weird because the Spurs aren't going to be any good." And I was like, everybody wants to watch Wemby, man. Like, if the Spurs are on pace for 35 wins again or 35 wins this season at Christmas, but Victor has an insane game on Christmas, and everyone's like, "Who is this kid?" That's a win for the NBA. And if not, you get the Knicks just absolutely dragging a team, and that's good for the NBA. So, like, to me, there's no real loss on it. Nuggets Suns, I also thought was a kind of a weird one. I get, like, Jokic is the 3-time MVP. Let's get him. And then the Nuggets won the title a year ago. Let's get them on. They're going to be another good team. And the Suns have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Let's get them on. It makes sense from that perspective. It's a market play with Phoenix as well. One thing I will say, I think more of what this kind of illustrates is, so Martin Luther King Day is supposed to be like a big deal, but we never really treat it like that. Like it's treated, I think the league does a very good job of highlighting Dr. King's legacy and showcasing the ongoing, never-ending problems of systemic racism in the country and the fight for civil rights behind that. However, the NBA doesn't have, and the NFL is running games on Christmas now. And so the NBA is running at, like, they don't really have days that are theirs. And the absence of those, I think, is not great because it would have been good to give OKC, who, again, was the one seed in the tougher conference with the MVP runner-up, would have been nice to throw them a bone and get them a marquee game. The Indiana Pacers made the conference finals, and Tyrese Halliburton is one of the most, like, I don't understand, like, why there's this resistance to Halliburton, because I'm just like, guys, their offense is awesome. Like, that team is so much fun to watch. They got waxed by the Celtics because Boston was better than everybody. And then by the end of that series, Hallie got hurt. Like, game one was up in the air until the very last seconds of regulation. So not having them in either marquee spot, it shows you the depth of the league, because it's like, look at all these guys we've got to, we have to showcase. We got Ant and Luka and LeBron, and Steph, and KD, and Jokic, and like on down the line. That's proof of it. But to me, it's regrettable that there's not kind of a B tier marquee night to showcase some of these other guys that maybe it would be good for national audiences to at least like see them, as opposed to what happened with the Eastern Conference Finals when everyone's like, how do you Halliburton? Is that how they play in Indiana? They have a team? Like, that's not, I don't think, great for the league.
I don't know. It might feel like a little premature too, though, to say that, considering we don't know what the national TV schedule is going to be like. And you might see a lot of Tuesday, Wednesday games with Indiana, Oklahoma City, et cetera. And if that's the case, then at least they're getting some of that coverage. I get that you can't afford to take that chance on, let's look at these young up and coming teams. You want to target a sure thing on Christmas Day. And look, nothing's a sure thing, because who knows? LeBron could be hurt. Steph could be hurt. Joel Embiid could be hurt. Who knows what's going to happen on those games? KD, Jokic, et cetera. But you want to at least be able to get a sure thing in terms of, what, we're reaching those kind of tangential audiences, the peripheral audiences, and kind of say, what, the names you love are back, and here they are on Christmas Day as you're sitting down there enjoying time with your family. You can't be like, hey, we've got this really young, exciting player named Tyrese Halliburton who makes great passes, and look at him score 140 points. They might give up 141, but damn it, he's really good, etc. So, like, you can't really afford to take that chance. Like you're saying, like, the NFL is king, unfortunately, and they're horning in on the Christmas Day scheduling. And if that's the case, the NBA is clawing for their lives. They can't afford to take those risks, and so they're going out there with the surefire names.
I do think that the NBA underestimates the potential for that last game of the night, Nuggets at Suns. They should have gotten weird with that one. That's the late game. You have a bunch of weird West Coast teams or Western Conference teams that you could get in there. Should have gotten weird with that one. Do a Pac-12 after dark type game with that one. I think that would have an interesting kind of setup. But I will say, look, with the new NBA schedule coming in after this year, when Amazon and NBC take over, we'll have, I think, different showcase windows for some of these teams. Although I will say, hey, Lakers at Warriors on Christmas. Guess what? We're heading the exact same thing in 2025 because they're going to do LeBron versus Steph as many times until one of them retires. So that's we're going to get ready for that one in the marquee spots. Up next, Team USA secured gold this weekend with the quote unquote Avengers squad. So what does that mean for 2028? Who is going to be on Team USA in 2028 in LA? And will Jason Tatum be among them? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On NBA. Final segment here on Locked On NBA. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys making this part of your day. Make sure to stick around all week long for more coverage. You can expect more details on the NBA schedule throughout the week, especially I think Thursday is when we're probably going to hear a lot about the schedule. Catch my meaning. So Team USA secures gold. Steph goes supernova in the end. It's an amazing moment, amazing images. Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Steph Curry. However, it's probably the last Olympics for at least LeBron and Steph. So the question I have for you, David, is if we start to look at 2028, what are some of the names that you think will be on the 2028 Team USA?
I've given this a lot of thought. We talked about this, a lot of thought being this afternoon, but a lot of thought in terms of, looking at this roster and who I think is going to move on and stay with the group and who I think they're going to be bringing in terms of new names. So I've got this list right here of an alphabetical order of players that I think will stay with Team USA that are currently on Team USA. I've got Bam Adebayo, Devin Booker, Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, and Tyrese Halliburton. I think those five are the most likely to come back. I think AD, as much as I think there's obviously a role for him and he played exceptionally well, I think given some potential injury issues, the fact that LeBron is not likely to be on that roster, I think he will not be part of Team USA moving forward. So I think he's might be on the bubble. KD is such a big question mark to me, and I think you could make a case that he would probably could still be playing in 4 years, although he has his own injury issues and he'll be older. So I'm not sure. I just went ahead and didn't take that risk. And I said, you know what, I'm going to leave KD off and just assume that he's not coming back. Do you agree with those five names so far that they'll be coming back or they're likely to come back?
Hallie, Book, Tatum, Ant, Bam. Yes. Yeah. That's those five I agree with.
I guess it's kind of anticlimactic. I think Tatum's coming back. I think Eric Spoelstra is going to be the head coach of Team USA. I think whatever issues he may have had with Steve Kerr are going to be gone or a non-factor. I think Spo might play him. Spo might not play him. And he's going to be honest with him and straight up, which is what Spo has always done throughout his career. And he's going to be fine with it. He's going to have to accept it for all the petulant whining that we're currently seeing right now. And getting his mom involved or whatever. That's, that's not going to be a factor in 2028. So those five names I've got. Now, in terms of the replacement players, I've got this list of 7, and it's not going to be exciting. And I'm kind of looking at it from the same perspective that Grant Hill has used, which is to get a balanced group, but also kind of have them from their feeder system of the select team and have them kind of be a part of what's moving forward here. I've got Jalen Williams of Oklahoma City. I think he's going to be a great option. I've got Jaren Jackson Jr. taking over the AD role. I think he's a really good fit there in terms of what he can do, stretching the floor, blocking shots, etc. I've got Paolo Banchero filling in kind of that KD versatile scoring role. He's going to be 4 years better. He's already a big name. He's already played on the World Cup stage. He's part of Team USA. I think he's going to be there. Filling in for, I don't think Joel Embiid, I don't think he's likely to come back. I don't know if he's going to play for France or Cameroon, or if he's going to play at all, but I think he's likely not playing for Team USA. I've got Jalen Duren, and I think in 4 years, he's going to be that rebounding guy that you kind of just need the physical presence, because we've seen a lot of teams, like everybody's saying Chet Holmgren, he's a really fantastic player, inarguably, a better player than Duren. I just think that you need more of that specialist type. And when you're looking at the physicality of a Duren and everything he represents, I think he'd be a really nice addition there. And then and I've got Jaylen Brown. He's going to squash his beef and make a big deal about it. He's going to put his fifth eye away or whatever, and he's just going to move forward. And then I've got him joining Team USA, and then I've got Jalen Suggs and Tyrese Maxey rounding out the roster.
Okay. All right. Interesting. No John Morant for you.
No.
You laugh at the idea. He's penciled in for most people's lists. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know that John's going to make, like, I mean, I know there's so much to kind of unpack with the way that he's been portrayed of late, and it's not like he's not a fantastic player. I just don't think I don't think he's going to be able to rewrite or unwrite everything that's happened over the last year or two. And as great as he's going to be in 4 years, I think they're just going to they want to keep their image squeaky clean. And I don't know that he necessarily fits in there.
Like, I mean, look, man, if we're going to talk about rewriting history, there's certain members that have gotten gold medals with pretty.
Oh yeah. I know it.
So I think 4 years is more than enough for that. I like the Paolo pick. Cooper Flag, I think, is going to have a spot. I'm sorry, I'm all in.
No, he might be great. In 4 years, you think he's going to be better than some of the guys that are currently in the
That's how good I think he is. He cooked AD with the select team. I'm in.
All right.
Chet Holmgren, I think, will be on that list. I think he'll actually be in there I don't think that they're going to allow anybody from that or most guys from that last team to be on. I think Jaren, like, it was such an embarrassment that there's kind of like a can't come back on, which I think sucks for those guys, because it's like, oh, congrats, like all you, like the best players decided to try and team together, and the Avengers and all this. You weren't helping out when it was FIBA World Cup, but now you can be bothered. That really pisses me off. Derek Lively is one that Ricky O'Donnell from SB Nation mentioned. I think there's a good chance that Derek Lively is going to wind up on Team USA. I think he is like a very likely candidate. They're going to have a lot of wings from this team with Tatum and Ant and Booker. Even if Tatum were to not go, they'd still have him. I do think Jaws. I feel like Jaws. I feel like Jaws going to have to not have to. I think Ja will be on that selection team because it is going to be an interesting question of like, who are the guards? Like, who are your guards going to be? It's Tyrese, and then who? You know, kind of like an interesting question of like, who's going to wind up from the guard spot on those spots. I think Maxey maybe is like the answer to that. It might be Tyrese Maxey. But this is what's fun is like over the next 4 years, we're going to see a lot of changes with who the face of, not just the face of the league, but we're going to see a lot of changes in terms of that top tier. Like there will be guys that we don't even think about or have heard of right now, or think about a lot of, that are going to be like, oh, wow, this guy's one of those guys. That's what's cool about the NBA is there are always these kind of guys that show up. I want to come back and I want to ask you about this because the JT thing I think is definitely going to be the most interesting question, and it's the most drama and all this kind of thing. Mike Weisberg in the comments is the idea JT's been petulant is insane. He handled stuff as professionally as possible. So I want to say, well, okay, look, I'll say this. I think that Tatum could have been a much bigger problem because he could have leaked to the media after the first game how this was unacceptable, and he could have done like a lot more. I do think he could have done a lot more stuff. His mom coming out, parents wild
Take
out.
control.
This
you can't control your parents. I get it.
Like, yeah, like it's your mom, and it's a bad look for him. And I'm sure he's like, can you not, mom, please? I just think he could have made a much bigger mess out of it. And I think there are other players that would have made a much bigger mess out of it. Now, I think Tyrese Halliburton handled it the best, where he posted Twitter of like, when you do nothing, post a photo of when you don't do anything on the group project and you get an A. That was amazing. But like, there's also Tatum was the best player on a championship team. That puts him in a different tier. He's been all NBA, like, et cetera, et cetera. So I get it. I do think that you're right that Kerr's going to be gone. And so I think it's a chance to start over. They'll mend the fences and they'll fix it. I think the big problem for Tatum, honestly, was that he didn't do it. What Embiid did was just he didn't get assurances. Like he needed to get assurances. And it kind of sucks that that's how this is, where it's like, yeah, no, you can make sure that you will always play if you play the political game right. It shouldn't be how it is. Like it should be like, no, if you need to play, you'll play. And if not, you won't play. Like I didn't find it all that offensive that Tatum didn't play because I was just like, I don't know. I like Booker more as a shooter, and Booker played really great.
Yep.
I don't like Jason Tatum as a 2 guard, and so Ant played a lot because he's a 2 guard. You can't play Jason Tatum at 3-4 because you have LeBron and KD. I don't know what, like, you're playing two bigs with the second unit, so that's one of the power forward spots. I don't know what to tell you. I didn't necessarily get that upset about it, but you do think that Tatum was disruptive with how he reacted to this stuff.
No, not disruptive. I think it shouldn't have been an issue. Like I think he could have downplayed it. Maybe it's just maybe it's just a loud minority in terms of Celtic fandom and everything else like that. And I guess Tyrese has not been. He's not as accomplished a player as Tatum is, but Tatum, as good as he's been or what he's been able to achieve over the course of his NBA career, doesn't necessarily reflect, as you said, whether or not he should earn more playing time. Like again, you can't control your mom, you can't control your fans or everything else like that. But he could have issued a public statement and been like, I respect what Steve is doing. It's not that big a deal. I'm happy just watching these guys. Instead, he kind of just let the Flames fan a little bit, and he didn't squash them right away. And that is on him. And so I think he could have, yeah, you're right. He could have been a bigger jerk. He could have been a bigger help too. He could have just squashed it right away and have it not be an issue. And then say what everybody else is saying. Say what you just said. We've got Hall of Fame all-time greats here on this roster. And I know that sometimes fragile egos don't allow you to kind of make that admission. And especially because you have to have that huge ego in order to be an NBA player in the first place. And I understand that 100%. But you could have just done a lot to kind of smooth things over and not take away, and not the very next day or 2 days later post that stuff on social media. It's just between that and Jalen, it's just such a bad look from the Celtics. And
I think that so much of that, though, is the reason I have empathy for him is because it was embarrassing for him. That's the problem here, is like he goes from being like this level of NBA player, and it looks embarrassing that he can't.
Did he think he was going to be marketed to the same degree as Steph Curry, LeBron James, and Kevin Durant?
I don't think it's the marketing. I think the question is not playing at, like, I don't think he had any sort of problem with not starting. I don't think he had any problem with being a spot minutes guy. And the question there is just like, is there room to play enough guys? And that's where I have a lot of sympathy with Kerr's argument, which is like, no, I have 40 minutes. What do you want me to do? Like, I can only play so many guys. And the roster was definitely built, and Hills admitted this, with the idea of injury redundancy. And that's the problem, is nobody, like, they lucked out that nobody got hurt. And so they didn't need Tatum because KD and LeBron were able to go. That's two guys over the age of 35 that very easily could have been like, yeah, I can't do it. And they were okay. And so you wind up with this situation. It's tough. I think it's tough for all sides. That's going to do it for Locked On NBA. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned all week for more coverage of the NBA schedule coming out, as well as hot topics all throughout the week on the NBA. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys again next time here on Locked On NBA.